Good evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. In the shadows of Mount Cameroon, the once vibrant city of Buea, capital of southern Cameroons and heart of the Ambazonian struggle, is slipping deeper into crisis. Powerless, waterless, and digitally disconnected, the city now stands as a stark symbol of state neglect and systemic decay. Entire neighborhoods have been plunged into darkness for months. Taps have run dry in communities where clean water is now a distant memory. And the famed Silicon Mountain has crumbled under the weight of chronic internet failure. Now, this is not just a breakdown of infrastructure, it is a breakdown of trust. With the 2025 elections looming, many residents are no longer asking for reform, they are rejecting the system entirely. In Buea, the question echoing across homes and streets is no longer when will things improve, but why should we vote at all? Now, what was once political frustration has become a movement of defiance, a people refusing to legitimize a government that has long turned its back on them. What is Tchiroma's latest interest with the upcoming elections, and why is he all of a sudden interested in the Ambazonian War of Liberation? These and more we'll look into in detail in tonight's Undaunted. Do stay tuned as we get the prime headlines. Tonight, Ambazonia remains true to the Monday ghost town. Political tensions flare as Tchiroma backtracks on southern Cameroon's independence issue. We see months without lights or water as residents reject elections. Then brutal military raid in our village, civilians beaten, homes looted by French forces. And on the African scene, we see that from Libya to Ambazonia, arrogant wars unravel empires. The malnutrition crisis deepening in Gaza as hundreds die, including dozens of young children. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigns after less than a month in office, deepening political crisis. But these are focused on the global scene. Do stay with us. The Ambazonian community remains resolute in upholding the Monday ghost town. A tradition instituted by the Ambazonian government since 2017, today, Monday, October 6, 2025, serves as a testament to their unwavering commitment to the cause. The Monday ghost town has become a cornerstone of the Ambazonian struggle for independence, with citizens in the northwest and in the southern Cameroon's region of Ambazonia observing a shutdown of businesses and economic activities. Well, today's ghost town also combines with a lockdown on election against the French Cameroon's elections of October 12th. Now, this peaceful protest aims to pressure the La République du Cameroon's government to recognize Ambazonia's sovereignty and address communities' grievances. Now, despite the challenges posed by the ghost towns, including economic hardship and limited access to healthcare and education, the Ambazonian people remain steadfast in their determination. The ghost town phenomenon has resulted in significant economic losses to the colonial regime, estimated at 777 1.26 billion franc CFAs, which is over 4% of national wealth in 2019, according to the French Cameroons Employers Union. The Ambazonian government seeks to restore the sovereignty of the former British Southern Cameroons, which was granted independence from British colonial rule on October 1st in 1961. The Ambazonian restoration movement is not about cessation, but rather the restoration of statehood, going by the 1961 Constitution and UN Resolution of 1608. Now, as the Ambazonian community marks another Monday of ghost town operations, coupled with a lockdown observation, the resolve remains unshaken. The international community continues to monitor the situation, with some calling for dialogue and a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Now, I'm not doing the news Undaunted alone. We have with us esteemed guests. We're talking of Barrister Fru and Barrister Mbeseha. It is a pleasure. Good evening, sirs.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting us again. Today, Monday, I'm happy to be here. Since I'm on leave, I thought I should take part during the week, and I'm here today. Thank you.
Have you in the studios, Barrister Fru. It's amazing to have you again in the studios, Barrister Mbeseha.
Thank you for having us, and particularly for having Barrister Nsoh to join us unusually on Monday. So we think it's going to add a lot to what I cannot complete, that could not have completed alone. Thank you once more. We're here for the beginning of the week, and hopefully the message will sink.
All right, so looking at the fact that this is not just another Monday ghost town, it is also, it encapsulates one of the days for the lockdowns kicking against the colonial elections in Ambazonia, which is to start on the 12th of October. And Ambazonians have respected today's Monday ghost town. I believe it's passing a message to the entire population and the diaspora and the international community, a silent resolve in Ambazonia, a peaceful, quiet protest to the colonization of Ambazonia. It's sending out a message that Ambazonians are tired of this and they want their sovereignty back. What do you think of today's ghost town being respected, as well as incorporating the lockdown day ahead of the colonial elections? Barrister Fru, let's hear from you.
Well, thank you very much. Today is a natural country Sunday for the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. But, you know, today has a significance because it is also the first Monday of the lockdown that was declared by our head of state from the 2nd to the 14th of October. So our people are respecting it to the letter. So that's why you see the whole of Bamenda is empty. The whole of Boya is virtually empty. I have not seen the pictures from Victoria, but I suspect that they will be the same. And the whole territory of the Southern Cameroons is in lockdown until after the so-called elections of La République du Cameroun, which we call I call it selection because there's no real election in La République du Cameroun. So that is where we are, and we are grateful that the program is being followed to the letter by our people.
All right, thank you, Barrister Fru. Barrister Mbeseha, looking at the elections, it's upcoming, and Ambazonians are respecting the Monday ghosters, as well as preparing ahead. They already prepared ahead of the long lockdown to show their disinterest with colonial activities like elections. We're also seeing something in the news, but we'd like to get your take on what Ambazonians should continue doing in this moment before we get on to the rest of the news.
I think Ambazonians should continue the lockdown plus. In other words, they have to add to what they have been doing. Most particularly because, Barrister Nsoh has said, this is Monday leading up to Sunday when we'll have elections. This week is particular, and it's very, very peculiar because people are going around and campaigning. People are campaigning all over Cameroon. But let me use this opportunity to address the criticism that we've had everywhere. People have asked, where were you when Issa Tchiroma came to Bamenda? Where were you when Cabral Libi came to Bamenda to campaign? They went to Buea, they went to Bamenda, they went to Victoria and other places. That's the question people are asking. The answer is clear. Once Cabral Libi is going to Buea, Bamenda, Buea, when you find them, they are going there escorted by the military. Can somebody escorted by the military to do a campaign call it a free and fair election? It's not a free and fair election. We understood that they will come with their troops of soldiers. Because they come to Buea, they come to Bamenda, they come to Ambazonia with troops. But they don't go to Garoua, they don't go to Ngaundre, they don't go to Betua with troops. So it is telling that this thing is being forced on us. We have said the elections will not take place, and we're still serious. But we don't rule out the possibility that our towns are occupied by the military. They are in the military camps. They are also Cameroonians. They will bring boxes there and vote. That's just a fact. But the public should know that whatever thing they are doing is a manipulation. It's orchestrated to show normalcy, which does not exist in Ambazonia. And so that's the bigger message. People should not ask us, why were you when A, B, or C came to campaign there? They came to campaign under the military. And the basic rule of any election, it should be free and fair. If you are campaigning under the force of arms, can you call that a free and fair election? Certainly not. And so the Ambazonian, your question was, what should they do? They should do their lockdown 10 times better than what they did the previous lockdowns in the past 7 years. To solidify, to tell the world, because the world is watching us, that no free and fair election, if anyone ever took place, is taking place in Ambazonia. Even if they bring their ballot boxes there, they are not Ambazonians voting. They are bought people, Cameroon military who are occupying the place, who are pretending to vote in Ambazonia. The last I saw was somewhere where they came to a place. They came to some place. It's repeating itself. They have put out a document about the elections, polling stations. And in a place with less than 100 people, they have about 5-10 polling stations. So they're having 8 people to vote there. Can you call that election? Certainly not. The voters at the polls are more than 8, plus the observers. Then the whole voting population is more than, it's just about 8-10 people. Can you call that elections? No. Let us continue doing what we're doing. We're on the right path. We're sending the message to the world. Yeah, when they knows that, though they will not come out publicly to admit it. But the world is watching. So Ambazonians, be firm on your determination. Do what you have been doing over and over, because our message is sinking. If the message were not sinking, we will not find them scrambling with soldiers around to campaign in Ambazonia. Over to you.
Mbeseha, you said something quite interesting. You talked about this colonial election period with them doing a lot of campaign. We see that, a shocking one actually, in Ambazonia, I think in Bamenda to be specific. Well, we see political tensions flaring as Tchiroma backtracks on Southern Cameroon's independence issue. Well, a video had surfaced online showing presidential hopeful Issa Tchiroma addressing the long-standing grievances of the peoples of Southern Cameroons in a dramatic reversal from his earlier stance. Now, in the footage, we see that Issa Tchiroma appears to acknowledge the historical injustices surrounding the 1961 plebiscite, where Southern Cameroons were denied the option of choosing full independence. His remarks highlight issues of marginalization and fraud that have fueled decades of unrest and the rise of the Ambazonian separatists, the Ambazonian liberation struggle. Let's take a listen to him stating this fact we never thought we would have heard from someone like Issa Tchiroma. Let's take a listen.
Dans les conditions que nous connaissons, je saisis cette opportunité pour rendre hommage aux pères fondateurs pour qui la dépendance était inacceptable et ont fait recours aux armes pour bouter hors de nos frontières les colons. Ils ont sacrifié de leur sang, de leur famille pour cela. Chaque fois que j'ai l'opportunité, leur rendre hommage est quelque chose de très important. Maintenant, la deuxième partie, qui avait la possibilité de choisir entre le Nigeria et le Cameroun. Les Nations Unies qui en administraient cette partie avaient donc soumis au référendum la partie qui était gouvernée par les Britanniques, le Cameroun, le nord-ouest et le sud-ouest. Mais il se trouve qu'on ne leur a jamais demandé la possibilité d'exister en tant que tel. On leur a simplement demandé de choisir, de se rattacher ou au Cameroun ou au Nigeria. La partie nord de cette partie a choisi, bon, dans des conditions pas claires, la partie du nord a choisi de rester avec le Nigeria, tandis que la partie sud a choisi donc de rester avec le Cameroun. Donc déjà à ce point, il y a un malentendu, sinon une démarche conflictuelle. Les sécessionnistes disent qu'ils ont été floués. Ils ont été floués parce qu'on ne leur a jamais demandé s'ils acceptaient de constituer un État. Pour les Britanniques, pour les Français, pour les Nations Unies, cet État ne pouvait pas être viable. C'est pour cette raison qu'on ne leur a pas demandé la possibilité de constituer leur État. Okay? Donc, le référendum a été organisé. L'immense majorité de ceux donc du Sud avaient choisi donc de rester.
Who would have thought Tchiroma stating history as Ambazonians would actually expect? But then we see that Tchiroma's sudden shift in tone has sparked mixed reactions across the political landscape, rightly so. Critics accuse him of opportunism, claiming his newfound sympathy is a calculated move to gain favor with pro-Ambazonian elements within the government and boost his chance in the upcoming presidential race. That being a possibility, would like to get your thoughts, Barrister Mbeseha, with these speculations of him trying to, for the first time, state in the true historicity of Ambazonia, probably as a mechanism to gain Ambazonian favor. Do you agree with that, Barrister Mbeseha? What do you think about his outing on this particular issue?
If you ask me what I think about his outing on this segment that you just produced, I will give him 150% credit for being historically accurate. What he has narrated purely in French, it reflects exactly what happened to us in 1959. And in summary, for people who did not listen to him in French, he says, we complain, and he's right, that we're never given the opportunity to be a country by ourselves. Why? According to him, and which is also correct, the United Nations, the British, and their partners told us that we could not be a country on our own. He's perfectly right. That's correct. They forced a plebiscite on us, which is correct. He says so. And the North voted to go to Nigeria. And the South, he said the majority voted to join Cameroon. That is a fact. That's historical narration that everybody who knows history should credit him for that. He did not say that we voted to reunify. He said we voted to join them. And so personally, I give him credit for that narration. That's a historical fact. Those are historical facts as narrated by him. They are accurate by my own estimation. There are other things that we disagree with him. But on that segment alone, on what he has said, give him credit for being historically factual, for narrating exactly what it was. Maybe we'll disagree with him down the road on other things. But for this segment, he has told the history as it was. Over to you.
All right, thank you, Barrister Mbeseha. Barrister Fru, aren't you shocked to hear that from the likes of Tchiroma? What do you think about this outing, this particular outing?
I would join Barrister Mbeseha to give him 150% because he has narrated the facts. he has narrated the facts as they were. And all what he said is factually correct. But the question is, on which side does he stand? And his statements as Minister of Communication of La République du Cameroon, he did say what he said, that there was no Anglophone problem. Knowing these facts, I don't think TChoroma learned this a few days ago. He had known these facts a long time ago, because he was already an adult when Ahijo was here. So he got all these facts from what happened. And I think he's factually correct. The question is, where does he stand? What happens now? Is he coming to the negotiating table when he wins the election? Is he coming to the negotiating table? And I don't see where we can fault him on these facts alone, from what he has just said alone. We want to see what happens at the negotiating table and whether he's coming to the negotiating table. That is my take. I therefore support what Barrister Mbeseha has said. The facts are factually correct.
Yes, Barrister Fru, as you and Barrister Mbeseha have said, he stated facts very accurately, but your question is something that concerns all Ambazonians. Knowing this fact and stating this fact, where exactly does TChoroma stand? Looking at the fact that even just days prior, TChoroma had publicly dismissed calls for Southern Cameroon's independence, making his recent statement appear politically motivated rather than genuinely empathetic. The development has intensified scrutiny over the motives of candidates vying for power in a nation grappling with division. So looking at these scenarios, we cannot help but ask, what exactly is TChoroma doing? Is he standing up for the truth? Is he planning to win and come to the negotiating table, or does he plan to continue a cycle of enslaving Southern Cameroons? Well, let's go on to listen to the last part of the other excerpt of this particular discourse where TChoroma was speaking. Let's take a quick listen.
La solution, puisque ils n'ont pas déposé les armes. Ils n'ont pas déposé les armes, ça veut donc simplement dire que toutes les conditions, tout ce qu'ils en entendaient, n'a pas été mis à leur disposition. C'est donc pour cette raison qu'ils continuent, ils ont continué et continuent encore à manifester. Tout à l'heure, vous avez dit, les Ambazoniens ont décidé de me soutenir et qu'ils ont accordé une trêve de 3 jours, donc d'autres disent une semaine. Oui, parce que dans mon programme, je préconise le retour au fédéralisme.
Et vous allez procéder comment? Est-ce que ça sera par référendum, justement?
Attendez. Non seulement le retour au fédéralisme, je libère tous les prisonniers politiques. Quelle que soit la faute qu'ils aient commise, je les libère d'abord pour ceux qui n'ont pas eu du sang entre les mains. Amnistie totale, mais pour les autres dans une deuxième phase. Parce qu'il faudrait que les Camerounais sachent exactement qui a fait quoi. Non pas parce qu'on va les condamner, mais il faudrait qu'on leur donne la possibilité de se repentir, de demander, de présenter des excuses, de demander pardon à la nation. Et en ce moment-là, le chef de l'État, disposant donc de pouvoirs discrétionnaires dans ce domaine-là, leur accordera également l'amnistie. Donc, la différence que j'ai avec les autres, c'est que, je préconise donc le fédéralisme. La première année, il faut absolument qu'on y pense. La forme de l'État dépend naturellement de l'écosystème, de l'environnement, des frustrations dont les uns et les autres font l'objet. Alors, je mettrai donc en place immédiatement une expertise qui va nous suggérer la forme viable de l'État fédéral, la forme viable économiquement, humainement. Donc, on me mettra, ces experts, ce sera des juristes, ce sera des historiens, des politiciens, et puis la classe politique. C'est tout ce beau monde-là que je mettrai donc autour d'une table pour que de manière ouverte,
Barrister Mbeseha and Barrister Fru, I believe you heard everything that TChoroma went on to say in that interview. This is Ambazonian ABC TV. We would like for you to tell Ambazonians, based on what he said, what you think about, did he score 100% on accuracy in this later part. Do you agree with that, Barrister Fru?
Yes, this is what troubles me about La République du Cameroon official. Look at this man talking about federalism. Who is he to accord us the federalism? We are at war with this country, La République du Cameroon. All we want to hear from him is he coming to the negotiating table with we will have a third neutral third party mediator. We are not talking to La République du Cameroon without a mediator. He should know that. He should know that. If he knows anything, he should know that. Number two, his so-called amnesty, releasing those who are in prison and those who are leaving those who have blood in their hands. Who are those who have blood in their hands during war? When you are fighting a war and the enemy catches you, you are a prisoner of war. What is he talking about? Blood in your hands? You see, this is the type of thing that Ambazonians should not take these people seriously. If Tchiroma wants to solve this problem, as soon as he takes over, he should come to the negotiating table, like La République du Cameroon government and the Southern Cameroon government will be on the table before a neutral mediator. The elements of international negotiations will come into play. After a war between two parties, the parties sit down with the mediator and the parties present their case and they argue and they agree how to solve the problem. Until then, we are not going to talk to TChoroma just because he has been elected. He cannot sit in wherever he is and talking about preconized federalism. Federalism with who? He should come to the table and let's talk. If he has to propose to us a federal structure, let him come to the table and talk about it. Let him come to the table with his team and negotiate it. Until then, we are not going to talk to TChoroma whether he's present or not. That is the position of the Southern Cameroon's Ambazonian government. One government to another, like it was in Fuman. So that is where we stand. And for TChoroma to talk about prisoners with blood in their hands during war, the so-called prisoners with blood in their hands were captured during the war on the war front, and they are in their keeping. Do we call the international law defines prisoners of war murderers with blood in their hands? He doesn't know what he's talking about. I hope that by the time he becomes president, I don't know whether he will become president, but by the time he becomes president, he should get a fine legal team that will be able to define for him what a prisoner of war is, as opposed to a murderer with blood in his hands. Thank you.
Thank you, Barrister Fru. Would you like to add to what Barrister Fru said, Barrister Mbeseha?
Sure. I think in the first segment, we dealt with Tchiroma, the historian. He told us the history as he understood it, and we agreed with him. In this segment, we're talking with Tchiroma, the politician. What is politics? Politics, in essence, is a game of manipulation, where people twist facts to suit their circumstances, where people in extreme cases even lie. Because sometimes we hear about political promises, most of which are never fulfilled. You make a political promise, you get the office, very few are those things fulfilled. But the fact that he knows the history, which we all agree, he now sees the problem, which I think it is there. His approach is not bound politically right now to suit us. Because he's talking to Ambazonians, but he's talking to Cameroon, his constituents, the people who elect him their leader. So he has to manage the facts with the political system that he's trying to navigate. Because, again, politics is a game of twisting facts. It's a game of manipulating people. It's a game of propaganda in some instances. And so what he says there, if you take it for manipulation, it's possible. If you take it for what is within his mind, it's also possible. He says he will release everybody. How he will do it, I don't know, maybe by decree or how somehow, but that is political environment. But we're not taking part in the elections, but we are watching them carefully, like neighbors. We've often discussed American politics right here. Last 2 years, we were discussing Nigerian politics. We're interested in what happens in our neighbors' backyard, but we're also very interested in what happens in Cameroon right now. Because come October 12, I've said this many times before, somebody will sit at the presidency there, where he was voted, selected, or just imposed. Someone will sit there. And in that person, we're going to look for a partner with whom to negotiate. The fact that he says that we can pass his decrees and set everybody free, that is possible. But if everybody left the Kodengi prison, the Boya prison, the Bamenda prison, and went home, that would not have ended the problem. The problem is not that people are in jail. The problem is what he told us in his first segment. Where is the state that voted to join you that people to come home? So you can decree their release, which is all one, because they're not even supposed to be there. They're not supposed to be in prison. Decree their release right now. Let Paul be even as we speak, release all of them. The problem will still subsist. And so, hopefully, politics is very, very local. Every politics is local. You deal with the politics with the environment where you are. So far, what you have said, if you were able to implement that, or if we were able to bring that to the conference table, we shall be able to debate him or his team. Knowing that the paymaster general that he will be is the president, he understands the facts of the problem. Therefore, hopefully, he should understand the problem. And so we're ready for whoever wins, and we hope he wins, to meet us at the discussion table for the negotiations. The conditions for negotiations are not yet set out, but they will be set out by the time they get ready. We are ready. We are not just going to walk to Yaoundé and sit like we went there and start in the 2019 Grand National Dialogue. We're not just going to walk there and sit like in 1961. We walked and sat in Fumba. We're going to move to the table with our own team, where we want us to meet, who we want to be the mediator or the negotiator, commonly agreed by the two parties. And so, for him, we take him for his word, especially from this historical narration. We take him for his word from what he thinks that he will do. But what he thinks that he will do going forward is not going to be imposed on us. History is stubborn. The facts are there. What will arrive at the conclusion is not his. It will not be based on him. We're not going to beg him to give us something. We're going to come together as two equal parties and address the problem. If he has answers for our questions, we shall have answers for his. And therefore, by the time we leave that conference table, I'm sure we shall be better equipped than we were in 1961. We would have arrived at the conclusion that we want, that will satisfy us. And so take him for that, give him credit for what he has done, take him as a politician, vying to get office, whose office he can only get with the majority of his population, the voting people, who do not, in principle, include us Ambazonians. We can sympathize with him, but we're not taking part in the elections, so we cannot vote for him. We're not going to vote for him because we're not taking part officially. And so we will sympathize with where he is. We understand his language. We understand his own thinking about the problem. That is what I take from his segment. Over to you.
As well said, barristers. Barrister Fru, you want to say something?
Yes. Listen, one of the most important aspect of negotiating after war is the condition of the prisoners arrested during that war. I cannot take it when Tchiroma he's talking to his people and is laying down policy. He says, except those with blood in their hands. I have been to that prison. I have represented a lot of our people who are in that prison. Some of them were caught in the battlefront. That is what they call people with blood in their hands. They declared the war on us. And we're fighting a war. Anytime you capture anybody during the fighting, you cannot turn around and say, he has blood in his hands, you cannot release him. That is not international law. They are all prisoners of war. That is my problem with what he just said. And let me tell you, I've lived with these francophones for almost 40 years of my professional life, and I know them. When he takes a position like that, he's expecting that his people will hold him to it. And that's why I must make it clear right now that we will not accept him releasing only some people and leaving some people behind because he claims they have blood in their hands. You rather not release, and we negotiate the release of our prisoners on the table. You rather not pacify us in that manner. No. You want to do it, complete it. You want to do it, complete it, and release everybody that was involved in this war that is in your keeping. Everybody that was involved in this struggle in your keeping, you release them first. But I'm not going to set that as a prisoner, as a precondition, because the United Nations and other organs, in particular the United States, says without precondition. So let's go to the table. What about ceasefire? He has not said anything about ceasefire, but if he wants to go to the table to negotiate with us while the war is on, so be it. That is exactly my point. I must hold him responsible for this, for what he has said now rather than later. That is what I was saying.
Fru, I believe, well said, Barrister Fru. I believe when that time comes, the international law will have to hold higher than some statements made by Tchiroma. We believe that would be the case. But then moving away from the shocking speech here from Tchiroma and getting deeper into the daily lives of Ambazonians, we see what is happening in Buea, the capital of the southern Cameroons and home to Ambazonia, the leading university in Ambazonia. It is gripped by a deepening crisis that has left residents in a prolonged state of darkness, thirst, and frustration. For months, entire neighborhoods have gone without electricity, with some areas like Mile 16 behind WDC Hotel in blackout for over 6 months. Small Sopo has had no power for 4 months, the university area for 3, and places like Biaka, Bomaka, and Sandpit to Moki Garage report weeks to months without power supply. Even the Central University administration functions without electricity. Generators are reportedly switched on only when the Vice Chancellor is physically present in the university. Across Moiko to Bomaka, it's candles and batteries, powered flashlights that keep the night at bay. Water supply has collapsed just as severely. Monangai quarters has gone an entire year without running water. Bokwango from Mbela Moki to Diongute Street has seen taps run dry, fueling anger among residents who now call for these streets to be renamed, arguing the politicians that they honor have done nothing to deserve such recognition. From Buea Town to Camp SIC and from long streets to Small Sopo, residents struggle daily without clean water. In Mile 16, people are left to drink from unsafe wells, while the wealthier residents have resorted to drilling boreholes and buying private transformers. The rest of the population faces worsening conditions without alternatives. Adding to the hardship is a persistent collapse in internet connectivity MTN, the dominant telecom provider in the region, has been accused by residents of providing deliberately poor service. In a town that was once proud to be part of the Silicon Mountain, digital access is now nearly impossible. Students cannot attend online classes or conduct research. Businesses suffer, and communication is increasingly limited. For many, the lack of internet is not just an inconvenience, but another example of institutional neglect and systemic failure. Now, against this backdrop of a state abandonment, frustration is boiling over as the regime prepares for its upcoming elections. Many in Buea across southern Cameroons are vowing not to participate. The question asked by many is simple. What should southern Cameroons exactly vote for? Coupled with no electricity, no water, no functioning healthcare, broken roads, unaffordable houses, and skyrocketing prices of basic goods, the idea of engaging in the political process feels not just meaningless but insulting. For the average citizen, participating in elections feels like endorsing their own suffering. This collective frustration has given rise to open political defiance. More and more residents are questioning the legitimacy of a government that delivers neither services nor safety. The collapse of basic infrastructure, the rising cost of living, and the absence of any meaningful response from national and colonial authorities. It has created a growing sense of betrayal in a region still grappling with the long shadows of the Ambazonian War. The continued deterioration of daily life has convinced many that the system is not just broken. It was never meant to serve southern Cameroon's Ambazonia. Now, as the crisis deepens, the people of Buea are not just losing faith, they are making a choice. The growing calls for boycott are not just driven by ideology alone, but by lived reality, a reality where the state has become invisible, except in matters of control and repression. A reality where even the most basic human needs are luxuries. Light, water, connections have become luxuries for people in Buea and other parts of southern Cameroon. In this context, many are saying clearly that Ambazonia will not be part of any colonial election organized by a regime that sees them but refuses to serve them, even while exploiting their resources. Now, still on the news, we see while that is going on like it wasn't enough, on October 4th, 2025, a heavy deployment of La République du Cameroun military forces descended upon Owe village in the Muyuka, unleashing a wave of destruction and brutality on the civilian population. Witnesses report door-to-door raids in the early hours of the morning, with soldiers breaking into homes. We see looting property by these soldiers. We see violent assault by the soldiers, violently assaulting residents without provocation or due process. Not like it's an isolated case. But then this latest operation adds to a growing pattern of militarized aggression in Ambazonia, where communities have borne the brunt of a conflict they did not start. In Owe, terrified civilians, including women, children, and the elderly, were reportedly dragged out of their homes and beaten. Several accounts speak of property vandalized, household goods stolen, and entire families displaced within hours. The village, now marked by fear and trauma, stands as yet another testament to the indiscriminate tactics employed by the La République Armed Forces in their attempt to quash the Ambazonian struggle. Observers and critics of the regime have once again raised alarm at what they describe as a gross misuse of military power. Rather than engaging with the Ambazonian State Army directly, the La République colonial military has chosen a strategy that targets unarmed civilians, raising serious questions about both the competence and the intent of Yaoundé's command structure. Many are now asking if the La République military is as professional and capable as it claims. Why does it avoid direct confrontation with the Ambazonian State Army? Why is its fury so often reserved for those least capable of defending themselves? Civilians, innocent civilian population. Now, such actions not only erode whatever credibility the colonial government has left in the southern Cameroons, but they also deepen the resolve of Ambazonian communities who increasingly view the state as an occupying force, not a protector. Makes this type of actions make that even more evident. With international attention still largely muted, the people of Owe village, like so many before them, are left to pick up the pieces again, with no justice in sight. Barrister Mbeseha, Barrister Fru, we still have you with us here. I'd like to ask this question to you, Barrister Mbeseha. This is not the first time we've seen this happen within Amazonia, but then people would wake up, try to go about the day, but then before the end of the day, their lives have been disrupted. No homes, their possessions gone, they're hospitalized because of this colonial forces invading or most likely pouring their frustration on the innocent civilian population. What do you advise the Amazonian population to do at this point?
Well, the Ambazonian population, the only thing they have to do and they must do is to throw these shackles of whatever they call government away from them. Not the government of Pobia, because the government of Pobia is a replica of the government of Ahijo. Anything called government that comes from Yaoundé should be dished out and dumped into the ocean. Because Ambazonia, like any other community, we're a community of people who call ourselves Ambazonians. There's a community of people who call themselves Nigerians or French people. This is a community of people. And as a community of people, we must have the basics that make us a community, that make us survive. What are those basic things that you need to survive? Is water. What are the basic things that you need to survive? Is light. What are the basic things that make you to survive as a human being in a community? Is good health. All these things are absent. You must also be able to move from one spot to the other, either physically as we do today, drive from one town to the other, or in the modern world, communicate through the internet, through other techniques that we have. Once all these things are absent, why should we ever have them? Yeah, we're analyzing Buea. Buea is good to analyze because Buea happens to be the capital. It happens to be where their senior officials live, their prosecutors, their governors, whatever thing you have in their own administration, they live in that town. If Buea doesn't have those facilities, how do you expect them to be available in somewhere else, farther away, where their big men are not there? Is it the reason why we join with them now? If you go to Buea, just Buea, the town is filled of dead, unpicked garbage, which is a source of disease. Last week we were talking about some of it on the Moya road there, between Moya and Ekona. They're virtually taken off the whole road. There are mosquitoes, there are flies, there's everything that can infect you there. Is that a mistake? No. They deliberately put it there. They hired a company called Hasaka. They showed them where to deposit the garbage. And so it's not a question of they not knowing what they are doing. And so this is a government, this is a system that we should throw out with all what we have left as life. If we did join, which we did not, we were not born to suffer. We were not born to go through this. And above all, everybody is supposed to live in security. What happened in Owe, you have just said, is just a tip of the iceberg. At the very least, you expect to get security within the country. But if you live in a community where the people who are supposed to provide you security become a danger to your own security, invading your houses day and night, stealing from you day and night, raping your wives and your children day and night, is that a community where you live? Luckily, what they did in the corner in Owe, they stole the money. They raped the women, but they left the houses standing. But before Owe, there was Ngarubu. Before Owe, there were 273, 800 villages and towns burnt in plain daylight without any excuse. Burned by who? By the military of a certain thing they call a government. Which military, the function is supposed to protect you. They have not protected you. They rather hurt you. They have ruined you. They have raped your wives. they destroy your children. We talk about the University of Boya. Remember what happened in 2016, 2017? How they dragged those girls inside the mud. These were the children of Ambazonians. If you were lucky not to have a child there, you were just lucky. Those children could be yours. They could be mine. Why do they merit this? Why should this be done under a government? If this thing had been done by some rock elements, in a rightful society, we will run to the government for protection. What will the government do? The government will investigate and punish the perpetrators. But when they are done by your own government, raping you in a way, stealing everything that you have, extorting from you, where do you run to? You have nowhere to escape. And so what's the only escape? If it's called a marriage, you divorce and go and live your life. If you're a woman, go and look for a husband to marry, or live alone. If you're a man, go and look for a different woman, or live alone. Just because you want to survive. You cannot live in the marriage where your husband wants to poison you and your children. You cannot live in a marriage where your wife wants to poison you and the children. That is not workable. You have to separate. And therefore, Ambazonians worldwide, in other words, from Kambe to Victoria, from Akwaya to Frunkankan, they have said no to this charade. They have said no to these 64 years of punishment. And so, what do other Ambazonians who have shaken off the shackles? We are gone. We are preparing to rebuild wherever what we have. We'll rebuild from whatever villages we still have left. We'll bury the dead, they're already dead. We'll deliver more children and they will live a better generation to come. For now, we have said no, and we insist no to everything, to ever having anything to do with these criminals. Over to you.
Mr. Mbeseha, before we close out on this segment with these two enlightened Ambazonian barristers, would like to get your thoughts on these last two reports, Barrister Fru. We've seen from power outage to colonial brutalization. Would like to get what you think about the happenings on the home front as we speak.
Let's look at the fact. Before the 20th of August, no such thing has ever happened to Boya. But Boya had never failed to have water. And to a large extent, they've always had light because of the Sonara in Victoria. Because light, the regime made sure that light, at the time that Sonara was operating, and is still operating somehow, there were always lights in Boya and Victoria. Let's look at the facts. From August 20th, when Boya started respecting the lockdown, the regime decided to punish the people of Boya right up to Owe and beyond. Look, the water system in Boya is not a fabrication of La République du Cameroon. That water system has been there for centuries because of the importance of Boya. They have now decided to sabotage it, to punish the people of Boya for listening to the call of the government of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia boycott of elections. What if the regime considers the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia as part of its territory? Which government will deploy troops into part of the country after campaigns for the presidential election have been declared on the 27th of August? Where have you seen that? That the military is deployed on a part of the country during campaigns for the presidential election. What does that tell you? It is clear evidence that we are not part of them. But if they want our people to vote, will they have deployed troops to Owe? Will they have cut internet for the Southwest and Northwest? I want to inform you and inform everybody that sometime in August, I think towards the end of just before the declaration of campaigns to start, the Minister of Communication and the Minister of Water and Energy were given instructions to control the internet in all of Ambazonia. That is why if you call from here to any part of Ambazonia, at certain times you cannot get through. They make sure that they control the internet. The internet is unstable. They have decided this time not to cut the internet like they did at the beginning of this struggle. They have decided to, at certain hours, you cannot get connected. And that is affecting students. They know it. The water system was sabotaged by the regime to make sure that Boya doesn't have water. The electricity supply, particularly to Boya, was tampered with by the regime. Because what is happening in Boya is not happening in Victoria. The deployment of troops to Owe was done by design to subdue our people, to punish our people for listening to their government, the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonian government, that they should boycott the elections. What they have done is they have reinforced the boycott. And that is good for us. But I want to say that in the course of doing that, you punish our people with basic commodities like water and electricity, and to a lesser extent, the internet. What can they tell the world about what they are doing for the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia? And you are called, people are campaigning. Not one single candidate has denounced what is happening in Boya and beyond, right up to Owe. Not one, but they know it. Tchiroma just came through the Limbe, Boya, Limbe, through Bonaberi into Douala, just 2 days ago. Did he not know or did not hear about no water in Boya, no electricity in Boya? Did he not hear about the attack on the 4th? The 4th is just 2 days ago of Owe by the Cameroon forces. What they did to the population, the royal population of Owe, and they want to come and get votes from the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia. Our people are resolute. None of them is going to for this sham election because they are not elections called by their own country. That is what it is. Our people are suffering because of the regime. And that is why we are watching very carefully who is going to win this election. And the person who wins the election must tell us, must come to the table and tell us where do we go from here. Thank you.
Barrister Fru, well said. This is where we'll be signing out with you. So much wisdom has been passed out to the home front, and I believe Ambazonians have been taking notes and paying key attention. And indeed, you've said it very wisely. This might have been an attempt of La Republique to sabotage Ambazonia and frustrate them in their efforts to respect the lockdown ahead of the colonial elections, but it has only given them more reasons why they should boycott the lockdowns. Except you have any few brief last words to say for tonight's Undaunted, Barrister Mbeseha, Barrister Fru would like to call it close here.
Well, I don't have much to say. Just that the population, like there's always light at the end of the tunnel. It resists because time is coming when the resistance will be over. We are closer to the end. There are brighter days ahead. All the pains that we've gone through will be forgotten. Over to you.
Barrister Fru.
Yes, I call on the people of the Southern Cameroons and Ambazonia to heed to the president's call for boycott, total boycott of this election. And anybody who thinks that he can violate that order and come out and go to the polling station, you are taking a risk by yourself, and only you will pay for it. Right. So I want to thank our people I want to thank our people for boycotting, for heeding to the call of boycott from 2nd to the 14th of October, and that everything will be well. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Barrister Fru and Barrister Mbeseha. It's been an absolute pleasure here on Undaunted with you too. It's been insightful and amazing. Thank you for joining in once again. And with that, we'll head on to something interesting. In 2011, Nicolas Sarkozy launched a war on Libya, convinced that French power could swiftly shape the region's future. The objective was simple. And what was the objective? Well, we'll find about that from Libya to Ambazonia, how arrogant wars unravel empire. And this is from the voice of Ambazonia by yours truly, Dr. Martin Mungo. Let's take a listen and find out how that objective was set in place. Take a listen.
This is the voice of Ambazonia. Truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Today is Monday, October 6, 2025. In today's editorial, we draw a powerful parallel between two wars, one launched in Paris under Nicolas Sarkozy, the other in Yaoundé under Paul Biya. Both were declared in arrogance, both were expected to end quickly, and both have dragged on far beyond the imagination of those who started them. In 2011, French President Nicolas Sarkozy declared war on Libya, confident that French power could shape the future of North Africa. The goal was clear: remove Gaddafi, demonstrate French leadership, and secure influence over the region's strategic wealth. But reality hit back. Libya collapsed into chaos, unleashing a torrent of weapons across the Sahara. These arms fueled rebellions, jihadist movements, and coups across the Sahel. What Sarkozy thought would be a short, victorious campaign turned into a decade-long quagmire. By the early 2020s, France's military operations in Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and elsewhere collapsed. Troops were expelled, bases were shut, and long-standing defense agreements were revoked. The Francophone system that sustained French power for more than half a century began to crumble. Today, Sarkozy himself faces a prison sentence, convicted in connection with illegal Libyan campaign financing. His political fall mirrors France's geopolitical decline in Africa. The empire he tried to protect through war is now being swept away by a continental awakening. Fast forward to Yaoundé 2017. Paul Biya, confident in the might of his army and the machinery of the state, declared war on Ambazonia. He called it a simple police operation that would be over in weeks. Like Sarkozy, he underestimated the depth of the movement he was confronting. What Biya imagined would be a swift suppression of dissent has instead become a protracted war of resistance. Ambazonian self-defense forces adapted, communities rallied, and the diaspora mobilized. Instead of extinguishing the movement, the war fanned the flames. 8 years later, the conflict has surpassed the regime's political and military capacity. It has drained the treasury, shattered the image of state control, and exposed the regime's fragility. Just as France misread the dynamics of the Sahel, Yaoundé misread the Ambazonian people. Sarkozy's Libya, gambled, and Biya's war on Ambazonia share a common thread. Both were born of imperial hubris. Paris believed its post-colonial architecture could survive another military adventure. Yaoundé believed colonial force could suppress a nation's identity. In both cases, the result was the opposite. France lost its foothold in the Sahel. Its military influence has been wiped out from territories it once controlled with ease. Similarly, the control of La République du Cameroon over Ambazonia is eroding day by day, structurally and irreversibly. Like the Sahelian populations who rejected France, the Ambazonian people have decisively rejected Yaoundé's legitimacy. Once a population turns its back on an imposed authority, no amount of force can hold it together. Today, Sarkozy's verdict is more than a personal punishment. It symbolizes the collapse of an entire strategy, one that believed power could be maintained through force and manipulation indefinitely. Yaoundé is walking the same path. The war it declared in arrogance is now beyond its control. Militarily overstretched, financially drained, diplomatically cornered, the regime faces the slow but certain erosion of its colonial grip on Ambazonia. The fall of French influence in Africa is not a distant story. It is a mirror. What happened to France's empire is already unfolding in Cameroon's colonial project. From Paris to Yaoundé, the pattern is the same. Wars of domination launched in confidence and humiliation and loss. France's influence has been wiped from regions it once dominated, and in time, the same fate awaits La République du Cameroon in Ambazonia. This has been the voice of Ambazonia, truth in resistance, clarity in crisis. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay strong, and stay free.
The World Health Organization has reported that at least 400 people in Gaza have died from malnutrition so far in 2025, a figure that includes 101 children, 80 of whom were under the age of 5. The rapidly worsening humanitarian crisis is being driven by continued restrictions on food aid, soaring prices for basic goods, and the destruction of critical infrastructure. Dr. Rana Abu Zati, head of the Department of Therapeutic Nutrition at Al-Auda Hospital in northern Gaza, says medical teams are overwhelmed as more patients arrive from across the Strip. In addition to the increase in the number of cases among children under 5 years old, we have started to face new numbers and new cases in those over 5 years old. She explained, we now receive children from 5 to 12 years old with severe malnutrition and medical complications, and even infants as young as 2 months. Well, currently, only 4 malnutrition stabilization centers remain operational in Gaza. And the situation in the north is especially dire, as food aid has been blocked from reaching the area for weeks. The shortage of life-saving therapeutic foods used to treat severe acute malnutrition is further compounding the crisis, leaving many children without access to proper treatment. Dr. Zarti warns that the death toll is likely to rise if urgent international action is not taken. There are large numbers of children and adults who have died due to malnutrition and its complications, she said. If the crossings remain closed and prices continue to rise, we're facing a real disaster in the Gaza Strip. There simply aren't enough food resources left to sustain normal life, she says. Well, across the rest of the globe, we'll take a quick break and be right back. While on the rest of the globe, French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigned on Monday today, just hours after presenting his new cabinet, making him the shortest-serving prime minister in the history of the French Fifth Republic. Lecornu, a close ally of President Emmanuel Macron, had been in office for less than 4 weeks and cited the lack of political support as a key reason for stepping down. His resignation adds fresh turmoil to Macron's already embattled second term, marked by political gridlock and declining public confidence. The abrupt departure comes amid growing instability in Macron's government, which has now cycled through 5 prime ministers in under 2 years. Macron has struggled to command a working majority in the National Assembly, and Lecornu's failure to consolidate political support highlights the president's diminishing authority. Critics from across the political spectrum have described the move as a sign of a presidency in crisis, with opposition leaders demanding fresh elections to restore legitimacy. Lecornu, previously Minister for the Armed Forces, was seen as a pragmatic choice aimed at restoring calm after a series of political setbacks. However, from the outset, he faced resistance both within Macron's Renaissance Party and from opposition factions, who refused to cooperate with the new cabinet. Despite Macron's efforts to stabilize his administration, Lecornu concluded that he could not govern effectively under such fractured conditions. The resignation leaves France once again without a functioning government and raises serious questions about the future of Macron's leadership. With no immediate successor announced and calls for snap elections growing louder, the country faces an uncertain political future as economic challenges and public dissatisfaction mount. Many French citizens are expressing fatigue with what they see as an increasingly dysfunctional political system. With that, we've come to the end of tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, let's take a quick recap of the news of today. On Undaunted tonight, we brought to you Ambazonians staying true to the Monday goes down, as well as the political tensions flaring as Tchiroma backtracks on Southern Cameroon's independence topic. Months without light or water or even internet in Buea, and residents rejecting election is what we see as well on the home front report. We also see brutal military raid in Owe village, civilians beaten, homes looted by colonial French forces. And we see the voice of Amazonia from Libya to Ambazonia, how arrogant wars unravel empires. And on the foreign scene, malnutrition crisis deepen in Gaza as hundreds die, including dozens of young children. French Prime Minister Sébastien Lecornu resigns after less than a month in office, deepening political crisis. And that was it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. On behalf of the entire Undaunted, we say thank you for tuning in. We'll leave you with ABC Amba TV images. Good night and God bless you.